Another offering from the Stand Up Talk Radio Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Sal's Comedy Hole Podcast.
Woo!
I'm James Quinn. I come to you every Tuesday morning with my intrepid producer, Ari Mannis. Say hi to the people, Ari.
Hello, everybody out there on the internet.
So that's 4 people, if you're counting at home. Ari just said hi to 4 people. I'm one of them. So, Ari, and here's what I do, Kyle. I talk for about 5 minutes, and then I introduce the guest, and I bring you on, and we high-five, and then we take our pants down. So, Ari, last podcast, I don't know if it was up. I didn't even bother listening back.
It's up.
So here's what happened. I keep suffering from the same crisis of being, when I hear back, I'm the most boring person doing a podcast on the planet. I also have the worst voice for a podcast on the planet.
I think your issue is you think you're the most boring person on the podcast. You're actually just the most boring person ever.
That's what I'm starting to think. I'm starting to think that I have nothing to offer. Listen, I have already dealt with, Ari, the fact that I'm not a good-looking guy. All right, I'm not rocking the good looks. So I thought mistakenly that must mean I have an overabundance of personality, and that if I just had a podcast, let's get everyone together and fucking listen to my personality, and then I go home, I sit on my couch, and I listen to me just fucking ham it up with nobodies for no reason, and I'm terrible, and I'm awful, and I'm on the worst podcast in America, and I fucking hate it, Ari, and I listened to your, did you put on new music the last podcast?
I did, yeah.
What did you put on?
I believe, what you asked me
GNR,
to
right?
do? Guns N' Roses, yeah. That's
what was the song?
The one you asked me to. I forget which one now.
All right, so I'm not certain that I can possibly follow the energy of Guns N' Roses. People at home would, hey, this sounds pretty exciting. I think I'm going to enjoy listening to this podcast. And then I start talking, and it's just a blistering. And I want to tell you more that happened to me this week. First of all, I grew a zit, Ari. This is
Where?
commonplace.
On your body?
Right next to my nose. And at its peak, it looked like I had 2 noses. It really was a shining example of everything that's wrong with this podcast.
How'd your wife like it?
Listen, I don't talk to her. I don't know what she thinks about me on any given day. So I'm perpetually unhappy. I'm doing the worst podcast in Hollywood, and I work at an exciting new comedy club, and I'm just waiting for everything to happen in my life to go right, and it's not going right, Ari. I think, should we get a better host for this podcast? Is there someone more dynamic that we could bring on?
No, I think it just takes hard work. And
I don't have the...
And you are a hard worker, but it takes also knowledge, and you're an idiot.
You know, back when you watch the old-fashioned movies, and there's always 2 people, right? There's the princes and the knights, right? And they run around the kingdom enjoying themselves. And then they show like peasants with like a rucksack on their back full of sticks, and they walk around the mud. I'm one of those people. I'm not a knight. I'm not good looking. I'm not a prince. I'm not interesting or smart. I am a fucking guy with sticks on his back, walking around in the mud, waiting for something to happen so I can throw onions at it. That's who I am, and that's the podcast that you're listening to.
I guess so.
A quick update. We've had on a few comedians on the podcast, and we've talked to them.
Yes.
Now, last week we had Jared Levin.
Yes.
And I got the sense while I was talking to him that he didn't respond verbally to many things. He often nodded. I would say, "Hey, Jared, how do you like working at the Comedy Store?" And he'd give me a thumbs up. That's not a podcast sort of response. There was a lot of yeses and sures. There wasn't. And by the way, I have a woman's voice. I have a fucking. It's high and it's tinny and it's gross.
No, you have a smoker's voice.
Fuck you. I don't smoke.
As he thinks about it.
Yeah, you're ridiculous. So welcome to the podcast, everybody. My name is James Quinn. I'm here with Ari Mannis, and we're going to welcome. Every week we talk about comedy, getting into comedy, being a beginner at comedy, and pushing forward to becoming a pro at comedy. Is that the focus of the podcast?
You talk about that. I'm already a big pro. Seasoned. Very seasoned.
I don't know what shows you think you're doing.
Big ones.
That makes me think
huge ones.
That you'd be any good as a comedian. But
I showcased at Sal's Comedy Hall.
That's true. You
Watch
did.
out.
That's true. I hosted that showcase several times.
Well, then does the host win?
Technically, the host always wins.
I hosted
I remember
at Hooters Comedy Club.
You know what
That's
was
pretty
great?
big.
You know what was great about Ari's showcase here at Sal's is at the end of the night there were 6 performers. At the end of the night, I picked 3 to come up and have audience response, and Ari wasn't among the 3. And I feel bad about that, Ari, because you really had a mild set.
I had a very good set. Not only that, I brought every audience member there.
Yep, he sure did. That's the absolute truth. He did bring every audience member.
So in that case, I think he wins.
Listen.
I should have won, but there was a bias.
There
in
was
the
a bias.
competition.
You know what? You didn't, because Melanie Baldonado brought those 2 people that actually spent money.
That night?
Yeah.
Melly Baldonado wasn't even on the showcase that night.
That's how memorable you are. I can't even remember what showcase you were on. Anyway, everybody, let's welcome a fantastic comedian. He hails from the Pacific Northwest.
Woo!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Kyle Henson.
Thank
Hey,
you. Thank
Kyle.
you. Hello.
Ari, when I introduce a guest, a little applause. That's what I need. Ladies
I'm
and
going to
gentlemen,
put that in
Ladies
post.
and
because
gentlemen.
let's welcome Kyle Henson, everybody.
Woo!
Not you. You don't applaud for yourself, Kyle.
You said ladies and gentlemen.
That's true. I did say ladies and gentlemen. As if some lady is at home listening to a nerdy podcast.
It's only nerdy if you say it's nerdy, James.
That's true. And I would say this is the least nerdy thing, because nerds usually back up facts and figures and theories.
There have been no nerdiness about the podcast.
Yeah, so far it's just remorse.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Yeah. So Kyle Henson, I met you at the open mics here in Southern California.
Definitely.
How long ago? When did you
Probably
move?
5-6 months ago.
5-6 months ago. You were fresh off the train.
Yeah, I drove down here in I think it was a Camry that a guy had rented.
Wow.
And just filled it up as much as I could and left what I couldn't in a 5x5 storage in Portland.
Did you have that moment when people move to Los Angeles from all over the country?
Right.
And did you have that moment where you got here, you load I don't know where you're living, some bachelor apartment or something?
Sure.
Yeah, single.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's a good starter. So you get here, you start loading up your single apartment with what you brought in the Camry, and then it occurs to you, I don't need this shit. I should have just brought a backpack. And then you're thinking, oh, why didn't I bring my bed frame?
Right.
I'd really like a bed frame now.
There's so many things that I gave away and sold and whatnot that now I'm like buying over again at retail price.
Over again. Well, first of all, that's your mistake.
Right.
You're in Hollywood, California. People move home with their dreams crushed every day. Do you live? How many apartments in your building?
Probably 15.
Nice. Don't buy anything, because every 2 or 3 months, for the rest of your stay at this building, someone's going to move out and they're going to leave a coffee table. They're going to leave a whatever. I got through 8 years in Hollywood before I started, being rich. I got through like 8 years in Hollywood just picking up used furniture from the neighbors moving out. Oh, you can't fit that on the truck? I'll take it. Well, thanks, man. I didn't want to make 2 trips. Well, no problem. Now I have a coffee table. Now I have a couch.
Hanging out at home waiting for the neighbors to move.
Yeah, they move all the time. And the neighbors in the building next door move. And they the sidewalks get filled with, and listen, I'm not saying fill your apartment with trash. But you definitely don't have to buy furniture in Southern California.
Nor, I've noticed that cars are a lot cheaper, but property is more expensive. Those little things like that.
So expensive. Cars are cheaper here?
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Portland.
Portland, Oregon. Why are they so
they're
expensive?
not considerably, but there's just so many more here.
More dealerships.
More dealerships. People buy cars more often, so that the used cars here are, just
the turnover.
Yeah, they have a lot more.
You bought a car?
No, just in general. I'm always
you just randomly check prices on things?
Yeah, I'm very what do they call it? Astute.
So Kyle, when did you start comedy?
About 3 years ago. The economy had crashed. I'd gotten laid off by AT&T, and I sat around for a while, smoked weed, played video games, and thought of a joke that I usually would update things to Facebook or Twitter that I thought were funny. And this one was just way too over the line. It was making fun of a suicide. And so I thought of going to tell it on stage, and I did. I didn't have anything to do that day, and I just fell in love. So.
That's interesting. You said over the line. Facebook, I've noticed. I can't put any dirty stuff on. I'm a dirty comedian.
Right.
And I can't put any dirty stuff on Facebook because I've got nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters.
Make a separate comedy profile.
I get it, Ari. I get it. We should all be nerdy and have 10 email addresses and 4 Facebooks and
if you want to be successful.
And promote. Listen, I don't want to be successful. All right, I technically already am a success considering the table I'm sitting at.
That's true.
So Kyle, Oregon, Portland, Oregon. You go up, you have a joke, something, and it was probably laying in your mind for a while that you wanted to be a comedian, right? It wasn't a spur of the moment, or was it?
You know, it actually, I'd never really thought of going and telling jokes to people prior to getting laid off.
Right. You never thought of it. Like when I was a kid. Well, and please, any way you want. But like if stand-up comedy was on TV, I gravitated towards that channel or that moment or that, if it was on a talk show, I'd watch the dumb talk show. Mm-hmm. The last 5 minutes of Carson, the last 5 minutes of Leno, the last 5 minutes of Letterman, waiting for the comedian. When it was a band, I'd turn the channel. Mm-hmm. When it was a comic, I'd be riveted. So I kind of sort of always knew that's what I was attracted to. You didn't have that experience?
So for me, I've always loved comedy. I've always loved watching it. When I got laid off was the first time that I had thought about me doing it, but I'd always fallen asleep to watching comedy, watching late night shows. And I don't know why I'd never thought that I could do it, but it just seemed like something that was so distant. You know, you'd watch Richard Pryor go up and just, take capture of a whole crowd.
Right.
I end up, getting a little dazed. I didn't think that was something I could do, which didn't make sense to me now because I used to sell cars, sell magazines door to door across the nation.
You're a talker. You're a people person.
I'm very out there. So I don't know why I didn't want to do something that I actually thought of loving. It just seemed too hard, too unrewarding for what it was. And then I actually tried it, and it was...
When I was a kid, and this is a story I tell people, but the cassettes were the thing, Ari. You haven't seen one of those because you're too old, but cassettes were the thing. We had cassettes.
I've seen those.
They're like
a silly man.
They have one side that has a tape on it, and it spools it to the other side, and in the middle it reads it. And you can flip it over and listen to a whole different side. And it's technically rewinding the other side as you listen to the other side. Boom.
I had, at one point, and I'm a kid, I'm like 12 and 13, I had Rodney Dangerfield, I had Sam Kinison, I had Emo Phillips. Like I had cassettes of these people, and I didn't have music.
Right.
And I'd go into my bedroom. I probably pissed off at something, and when you're a kid, you'd go into the room. And I just listened to these cassettes over to the point where they weren't funny.
Right.
Like I listened to Robin Williams and Billy Crystal so many times that I wasn't laughing when I was listening anymore. It was weird. It was bizarre. Like I got comfort from listening to people like do funny voices and tell jokes.
Right.
It's weird. Ari?
Yes, sir.
Was stand-up comedy your form of entertainment?
That just comedy in general mostly, but I always have loved stand-up since I was a kid.
Interesting. I don't believe that for a second.
When I was young, we were going helping my friend's dad throw Wall Street journals to people's homes. I think we were like 10 or 11.
Did he not have arms?
No, he did, definitely. He would drive, and we would just have the van open, and it went till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and as little kids, that is just way beyond any time until we'd pass out in the car on the way home, and he would finish it up. It wasn't like labor. It was like, hey, do you guys want to come?
Right.
So we get back, and for whatever reason I was still awake, and so he puts in this VHS, and it was of Richard Pryor, and I think it was Live at the Sunset. He was wearing all red, and I didn't realize how a man could capture everyone's attention and make me laugh so hard off of just making impressions of monkeys humping in people's ears.
Right. That's a funny special. Because he does the match joke where he talks about himself being lit on fire.
That's just the perfect way to end it.
Yeah, that is a funny special. So Portland, Oregon, you get your start. And what's the comedy scene like in Portland, Oregon?
Very supportive.
Very supportive.
Yeah, definitely. You always run into your crazy people, or there's a couple of douches, but for the most part, entirely, everyone's really friendly and accepting. They try to get you to come and participate in things other than comedy. There's a Portland comedy Facebook group that was really supportive, and a couple of like staple, actually like women that are really good at running the program there.
Did you get comedy pussy up there? Is that why you bring up the women? Is that
No, I meant just like headstrong. I mean, a lot of them are
older ladies,
are older or lesbian. Yeah.
Yeah, Portland. A lot of old lesbians doing comedy up there.
Well, I mean, and the thing is, they definitely have a grasp on the whole like comedy scene, and I'm not as a whole. I mean,
Right.
but way more than there is
So
here.
the scene in Portland, how often did you mic in Portland? How
Every
often
night.
did you- every night.
Every night. I might miss 2 nights a month.
Right.
And it wasn't miking towards the end. It was just, here, there's this show that's going on at this time. And I had it lined up so at least 5 nights a week, I'd have a show at a place.
Were there any stars in Portland? Were there like...
Yeah, they would normally go to the main club. There's 2 main clubs, but one consistently had like the headliners, like Joe Rogan, Bob Saget would come through, Bill Burr.
Right.
That was the Helium Comedy Club. And then there was Harvey's, which is an older, more established club, but only brings, I shouldn't say that only brings in, but it brings in typically like Saturday Night Live people.
Right.
Not like, I don't know.
Not the, you had 2 clubs in Portland, Oregon. That's interesting. I would have bet one. And then you had bar shows and bar mics.
Right. Or small theaters.
Huh.
They had like the Brody Theater and whatnot.
So you pack up, named after Brody Stevens, right? The
Of
Brody
course.
Theater.
Yeah, the great.
So you pack up your stuff.
Right.
You had what, 2.5 years up there in comedy?
Oh, yeah.
2.5 years in comedy.
I thought you meant in general.
No, I mean, you grew up there.
Yeah.
So you discover your identity. I'm a comedian. You're getting on these bar shows. You're doing these mics. You pack up your stuff into some buddy's Camry.
Right.
You come down to Hollywood, California.
It was a random guy on Craigslist.
Really? You Craiglisted it
Yeah.
to come down? And what was the drive like?
It was fine. The guy was actually an ex-comedian. He did something else now. I mean, I don't think he really had the heart and goal for
He
it.
didn't have the chops.
He told jokes. For
So
a while.
on Craigslist, you said, "I'm moving to Los Angeles. Who's coming?" Or did you respond to his ad?
Gosh, I did both. I don't know how exactly I got. I ended up like weeding out a bunch of different people and sort of making the right decision a couple weeks in advance.
Yeah. Those timeshare drives can be a nightmare. When I moved years ago
Right.
to Hollywood, California, I'm packing up a pickup truck, and this girl that I had gone to high school with and not even kept in touch called out of the blue, and she said, I heard you're moving. I heard you're leaving Friday or whatever. I have a boyfriend in Los Angeles.
Right.
I'd love to share the drive with you. I'll pitch in on gas and stuff. And I was like, wow, that's weird. I haven't heard from you in a couple of years. I don't know, because all my stuff, all my earthly belongings, and then are going to be in this. I might not have a spare seat for this person. And then I'm thinking, well, it's a long-ass drive from Dallas.
Right.
It's a 24-hour drive. So someone else to pull shifts driving, maybe I'll give up whatever I'm going to put in that front passenger seat, which was going to be a bunch of clothes and CDs
Sure.
and whatever. I'll give that up. I'll leave that at the old mom's house or whatever. And I'll have her pitching on gas. It'll save me money. We get about... We get about 6 hours into the drive. I turned to her. I go, listen, I'm exhausted. Do you want to take the next leg and then we'll...
Right.
Oh, I don't drive.
Oh no.
Is what she says to me. I don't drive. I don't have a car. I never learned how to drive. I don't have a license.
That's not the time to teach her.
Yeah, and I was like, what? I'm on the fucking 10. There's 14 more hours of this, and then we're in Phoenix. What are you talking? We are not even at El Paso yet. Texas
Right.
is so big that halfway from Los Angeles to Dallas is still in Texas. It's El Paso, Texas. That's how big it is. We've got multiple states to pass through, and you can't drive?
Right.
I was so pissed, and I immediately was like, this is not worth the effort.
Wow.
To leave a bunch of shirts and CDs and stuff back at the...
So did you take her back?
Take her back? I was 6 hours into the drive. I gritted down. I started hallucinating 18 hours in.
Oh, no.
We hit... you take the 5. So we were on the 5 into Los Angeles. By the time I hit the 101,
Right.
and mind you, I don't know where I'm going.
Right.
I don't have an apartment. I just know
Where'd you stay?
You get off at Hollywood Boulevard. That's what I knew from TV.
Right.
You get off at Hollywood Boulevard. I was going to find a hotel at Hollywood Boulevard. So I get off the freeway at the Hollywood Boulevard. I was hallucinating the whole 101. I don't remember any of it. I don't remember any of the sights. I was falling asleep, and she's no help. She's asleep. And I weave in and out of traffic. We get to a crappy, like, crack hotel because I only wanted to spend $40.
Yeah.
You know, so we're like in the shithole end of East Hollywood, way east of La Brea and Highland and Vine. We're going east of the 101. We're in, you know,
out there.
We're out there. We're in just a shitty motel. So we get to LA, and I put my stuff in the hotel room, and I fall asleep. And the next morning, her boyfriend hasn't come and got her.
Right.
The boyfriend, I had this girl for like 5 days.
Oh, no.
The boyfriend hadn't responded to any of her phone calls, never bothered to come see her. Like, it was just the most, that's my timeshare drive. I'm looking for an apartment as I'm stuck trying to entertain this weird girl who can't drive. Oh, fucking ridiculous.
Who doesn't drive? There was one thing that they were like, don't trust someone who doesn't have a cell phone or doesn't have a driver's license. I mean, don't trust them, but just like think
I'd
twice.
say don't trust them. Don't trust. They're up to no good.
Something.
Wow. So I derailed this conversation with Kyle Henson. Ari, I apologize. I noticed he started texting once I got into the meat of my life story.
Oh, Ari Mannis.
So Kyle, you moved down. You load into your single apartment, and how do you find the comedy scene immediately? I'm talking from day one. In Los Angeles versus Portland.
Oh, I also, I got dropped off on, we went and I got a storage unit. It's on Santa Monica and I think La Brea. And then immediately after that, he drops me off on Hollywood Boulevard. And I go to a hostel, try and check into the first one. They said, are you from out of town? I said, yes. They said, prove it. And I showed them the ID and they said, no, out of country.
It's illegal, by the way.
What, only allowing out of country people?
Yeah, it's illegal.
So they do it.
They do it at all the hostels because they're worried that you're going to rape the foreign girls. I'm being serious.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I went down the street to another one, and they let me in. I think it was like $30 a night. And
in the bunk bed situation?
Right.
You got ripped.
Yeah.
You were a rube.
$30 a night. So I ended up staying there for I think 2 or 3 nights. But that first night, I changed out of my clothes, took a shower, flirted with the door girl a little bit, and then walked around up and down Hollywood Boulevard, just doing the touristy stuff. And then that night, I think I went to sign up at the Comedy Store, but I was too late. The list had already been pulled. I showed up, I think, at like 6:30 or something, and it seemed just really overwhelming. That whole area there. Yeah. Too many people. Everyone. I felt like they were looking at me like I was the weirdo.
We were. I remember that day that you walked up. Remember, Ari, when I nudged you and said, "This guy's a fucking rube." Remember when I did that?
Yeah, and then we beat the shit out of him.
Oh my god!
Threw him in the dumpster. Yeah. So from there, I didn't know how far these city blocks were, and I looked up on my phone. There was another open mic at this place called the Red Rock. So I walked down the street, and sure enough, it was like a mile away. I didn't know that 8 blocks meant a mile. So I get to the place, and I'm at Stretch. I don't know.
Stretch SHP.
And he was bartending and hosting all in one. And he brought me up, and it'd been a while since I'd done comedy because I'd been packing up and moving and saying goodbye, and so it'd been about like a week, and just having a week off, I was like, and people kind of looked at me, and I was like, shit, this is how LA is gonna be.
Yeah, it is how LA is gonna be.
And so did my first set, got that off, and that was how I hit the ground running.
Yeah, Red Rock is gone, by the way.
Gone.
Red Rock is gone. That happens in the world of comedy. The bars turn over.
The first bar I come to.
The first bar, you killed it. You killed Red Rock. I
single-handedly did. You know something about that though? I was there the last day that they were open, and they ran out of everything except for some Bacardi rum.
Right.
And
they weren't restocking the juice.
Nothing. And so I kept asking, do you have this? Do you have this? No. And he's like, hey, this is what we have. And he like put all the bottles on the table, and there was like 8. But they were pouring them thick.
Yeah, sure. They got to get rid of them.
And didn't matter. And people all had this nostalgic thing. I could tell I was like the guy who had been there twice, and everyone else. But
that was a place that, I went there years ago, Red Rock. This, again, derailing the Kyle Henson story. It just never sort of caught on as the happening bar to be at, but it was always just sort of in Hollywood, a place you could go get a drink.
It's on a good corner there.
Not really.
No, but I mean...
terrible corner.
What?
It's an awful corner to have your spot on.
No.
There's no parking. There's no whatever. There's now that lot across the street. There didn't used to be.
Oh, well, I don't really think about parking. That's a good point.
Really?
Yeah.
Anyway, do you have a car?
No,
That's why you don't think about
I
parking.
sold it to move down here, which, by the way, was a great idea.
Yeah,
you know.
always get rid of the car. Don't bring it. Get rid of all the. If you're moving to be a comedian, get rid of all expenses and become the guy who walks the earth with your philosophy, and then slowly build everything back up.
Right.
So, you find Red Rock. You did your first set, and how did you experience the people? Because you mentioned Portland, everyone's very supportive.
Sure. I didn't feel like a shunning, but there's definitely, you don't run into the same people every single night unless you go to the same place.
Right.
And I just hadn't built up a pattern of people to talk to, or friendships or anything of that nature. So it's not to say that people here were, and actually I was expecting that. I was expecting people to be a little
standoffish.
Yeah, and dickish, which is not the case. They might have been working on their own stuff or didn't know me.
There's a gang mentality in Southern California comedy in Hollywood, because everyone's here for show business, and they think it's the professional end to show business. Like,
Right.
I'm going to get a sitcom. I'm going to be a movie star. I'm going to be a big comic. So when people actually make friends with you, it's to bolster their gang feeling. It's really weird because you'll notice these cliques, these four comedians. You always see them together. They go to the same mics.
Right.
They ride together. And you're like, how come I'm not friends with those guys? You showed up on the wrong day. That's all.
Right.
When they were choosing their gang, you showed up on the wrong day. Wow.
Well, that's what I've just went and did this little seminar speech that Ari Shafir had at the Comedy Store last night. And it was, not last night. I think it was Sunday night. It was really informative. And one of the things he touched on was just, being friends with everybody as opposed to, I like to be Switzerland about things. And I hear a lot of stories about people and whatnot. And one of the things I like to do is not talk about other people.
That's all I do. All I literally do. I pull people aside and I go, have you seen that Brad Sachs? That guy has got a urinary tract something and he can't stay out of the bathroom. Then we all watch Brad as he, like, in an hour will go to the bathroom 4 times and we laugh. We cackle like hyenas. Or I'll be talking to Doug Reed, who's a horrible human being. He's disgusting looking and he's angry all the time and he's always high. I'll be talking to Doug Reed about just some random person, and it'll dawn on me, I'm the worst person in the world because we're making fun of someone I don't even know him. I never even said hello, and I don't know. I started talking to you pretty early, I think, from seeing you.
Definitely. Well, I think there was a couple nights that you were hosting,
right?
And so you definitely pulled me to the side, and then I think I had a couple good sets, and you gave me some good advice.
That's what I tend to do, Ari. I tend to give people advice.
Yeah, the good word is the part where I was confused. I gave him good advice.
I don't know how to turn off that muscle. It's a real dicky thing to pull someone aside and give them advice, but at the same time you feel like you need to.
Sure. It cuts corners. You can. It's easy to notice what other people are doing wrong. It's very hard to notice what yourself is doing. Right.
Absolutely. And you can also, the things that you don't like in other people tend to be the things that you do as well.
Right.
Oh man, I hate that guy. It's the whole getting cut off in traffic.
Mm-hmm.
I will flip people off 3 times on my way somewhere.
Someone does it to you.
But I also will cut off 3 people as I'm you know what I mean? Like, and it never occurs to me that I'm my own problem. I don't know.
Well, that happens. Like, one of the things that I always think about is not saying how are you doing when I get up to the stage. How are you guys doing?
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
Start.
Because then everyone looks at you. Nobody says good.
Yeah. But I feel like if you jump straight into your material at the same time, they're like...
Well, no, not straight into your material, but you need an opener that's not...
How are you doing?
How you doing? Or what do I talk about now? Or I've seen you all at other mics. You've all heard my stuff.
You could do anything. You could be like, one of the ones I like is when I say... over the next 20 minutes, like, we're going to get to know each other. And, like, everyone knows it's like a 5-minute set or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll just do, like, 30 more jokes and get out of here or, like, whatever.
Yeah, I've heard you do that. I wasn't impressed.
Well, it's better. I'm
just teasing.
It's better than how you doing.
No, Ari, that's funny that you say that you can't just jump right into material.
You know what I mean?
You should never be jumping right into material.
Right.
It should be organic and
that's
real.
What I'm saying.
But you got to work on an opener to launch
to be
yourself.
different. You could say, like, what up, dildos? What up, you fucking dildos? Just say that to the audience.
What up, you? Who's got? You get up there and you just yell at, "What up, you fucking dildos?"
Yeah.
Is that what you do?
Like, no, that's what up, you motherfucking dildos. Just like you're calling the audience dildos, so that way you're making them like feel bad about themselves, and then they're gonna laugh at you more.
I don't agree with that.
You just
I've never done that.
just
I'm
call
just
them
saying in my
dildos
head.
to start. That's
So-
a way to start.
So now you've been here how long?
About 6 months.
6 months. And how are you feeling? Your feet? How are you feeling?
It's good. I've built up like a good friendship base, so I know a lot more people. I'm getting invited to do amazing podcasts.
I can't wait till that happens to me. That'd be great. Someone says, "Hey, come on my good podcast." I'd fucking do that.
I've been getting some good shows, through people that I've met. But the thing I keep running into is when I find shows, either on Facebook or Craigslist or wherever, because I'm always putting my feelers out, or even sometimes people will hit me up on Twitter.
Right.
They will book me for the show, and then
Ask how many people you're bringing?
anytime afterwards. It's usually the next email, but sometimes I've had it be like a week before. They're like, okay, so there's an 8-person minimum.
Well, here's how you fix that. So, because the first show when I moved out here too, I got tricked in that big Ellery Alexis Bringer show.
We're talking about bringer shows,
Right.
the cancer of comedy.
The cancer of comedy. So the first show I ever did in LA, I got tricked into a Bringer show. Actually, no, second show. And
describe the trick.
So it was an ad on Craigslist to perform at the world famous Pasadena Ice House.
Wow.
Right.
And I was
Nice
like,
house.
I sent him my video, and I sent him my small comedy resume and said I would love to perform here. And then he calls me and he goes, "Yeah, I liked your video. You were really funny. Yeah, we'll book you in." He goes, "This isn't a Bringer show, but I would love for you to help me promote and bring people." I said, "Yeah, no problem." Because it's true. If I'm on a show, the least I can do
Definitely.
is post on my Facebook and
Absolutely.
Twitter
Well, you want people
that
to
I'm
come.
coming. Exactly. And I want people to come, and I want people to know I'm active and pursuing comedy. So I show up, and he goes, "So how many people you bringing?" And I go, "None. I didn't know this was a Bringer show," because I knew what Bringer shows were, and
Sure,
I knew to avoid them as soon as I moved out here. I go, "None. I didn't know it was a Bringer show." He goes, "Well, you said you thought you could bring like 3 to 5 people," and I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Maybe, like, I'll try, but I didn't know I needed to." And he goes, "Well, you don't need to, but I'll never book you again if you don't bring people out." And I go, "Okay."
Well, good.
So yeah, I did the show.
And then he puts you up first.
Or last.
You usually, I don't know. For me, I think he put me up. I had somebody coming or 2 people coming, and he was giving me a hard time about them being late. And I was like, "Dude, what do you want me to do here?" And so he cuts down on my time. I don't want to talk about it.
No,
I'll
there's
talk about
there's
him.
a
There's one
punishment
person.
aspect to Bringer thing. I did a Kathy Lewis in the Belly Store, but I actually don't know her. She seems like an okay person when
Right.
you're talking to her. She has a funny voice, a black lady or whatever. And so I'm booked on her show, and I'm a nervous young comedian, and it's a Bringer, and I'm only able to rustle up 2
Right.
people. That wasn't enough for her, so she put me second to last with the person who brought nobody going after me. There's like 10 people on this list.
Right.
So naturally the audience is filtering out.
Sure.
After the first comic, after the second, after the third,
Because they came to see who they wanted
they came to see their friend. So after, the 40-person audience had gotten down to about 14.
Right.
It's about to be me. She goes up before me, and she makes it known that this is like my punishment for not bringing enough people.
Wow.
So she goes up before me and does like 35 minutes
No.
in the
Holy
belly room.
shit.
"I'm getting ready for my album," she said with her funny, scratchy voice. "So I'm going to do my..." And she does like 30. And the last 10 minutes of it were just really punishing whoever was still in the room.
Right.
Because it ran out of funny after 20 minutes. And man, did everyone leave except for my 2 friends while she was speaking. And then she introduced me, and then I went up, and I lost all heart
Yeah.
to even perform, and I was just talking to my 2 buddies from the stage, and I was like, "This is what happens when you come out and be someone's bringers." And then the guy after me he was just white as a. He was completely upset with his life. I mean, we sat through a 3-hour comedy show. Right. Through a piece of shit 3-hour comedy show. And then I was like, listen, me and my friends will stay for you if you want to go up. And so we stayed and watched that guy. And he actually did a better set than me because he had an audience.
Sure.
I was so pissed.
I sort of feel like the bringer shows kind of lessen every time that I've seen him, and then I've seen the people up, and I've heard, oh, that's a bringer show. Right. Mentally, in the backside of my head, I'm just like, oh, well. Yeah. I don't know if it means that they actually don't do as well when I'm watching them, but it almost seems like all of the bringer shows I've been like, I don't think that the people.
Well, we've talked about this before on the podcast. Bringer shows are a cancer in comedy right now.
They should die.
They are every regular person within the sound of my voice should avoid bringer shows like a plague, because what happens is it's killing actual stand-up comedy.
Right.
It's killing real good shows at real good places. They have these bringer shows. A comedian brings 4 or 5 of their friends, who then sits through the worst stand-up comedy show of their life.
Right.
Because everyone's new and inexperienced and doesn't know what they're doing, and there's no flow to the show. There's no one's even cares about the quality of the content. It's just everyone who brought people gets 7-8 minutes, and then some headliner gets to drop in for 20.
And I think that the host makes it known a lot. A lot of the times I've seen it, they're like, "Oh, who'd you come to see? Who'd you come?" And I'm just like, man, act like it's.
You're here for Jenny. Yay! Jenny brought the most people. She's probably
gonna win. And another thing is, there's clearly right now. I mean, one reason why there's so many bringer shows in LA is because the club scene is hurting, so they need it for revenue.
Right.
But these bringer shows are just, in the long run, hurting the clubs even more because they need to start just thinking of an alternative marketing methods to fill the seats rather than bringer shows.
Because what happens is everyone who's witnessed a bringer show, if you sit through 2 hours of horrible comedy, the next time you see a comedy club marquee, you are not impressed.
Not going to go.
You are not impressed. Maybe if your favorite comedian rolls through town, you'll buy tickets again. But you're not going to randomly turn your Friday night into I'm going to comedy because you sat through the worst show of your life. It wasn't a band. It wasn't, it wasn't a magician. It wasn't a whatever. Now the worst show of your life was a stand-up comedy show, and that degrades actual stand-up comedy. And it's going to take past comics. It's going to take real-life, living and breathing professionals to just shit on these bringer producers everywhere they go in order to marginalize people wanting to make because a lot of people in Southern California make their living and like $50,000 a year off producing bringer shows.
A lot. What happens, I've noticed sometimes, is they'll have one of these bringer shows, and then they will slip in, especially if it's a comedy club. They will slip in like a headliner, like someone who's been on TV before.
Yeah, the Comedy Store requires that every outside produced show, the Comedy Store gets to put on a few of their own.
Every place does, because you turn to the bringer producer and you say, "Oh, you like the fact that you got to collect money at the door? Well, here's our comics, and we want to, and you just drop in your. They don't care because it's still just a bunch of kids who shouldn't be doing comedy in public anyway.
Right.
They should be miking.
So I that didn't really happen in Portland too much.
No, it was just shows, and if you did badly, you did badly. It was
you wouldn't get booked again. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even then, there's still a learning curve, but in LA, there's no learning curve. Mm-hmm. It's you are impressing or not impressing an audience every time you go up.
Right.
And it leaves a lingering effect. And plus, this is the home of show business. This is where fucking bands, the front rows. Have their arms folded because they all think they can play guitar better. Well, that's what comedy clubs are up against. Is there's so many people are actors and poets and whatever, and they're judging art so harshly that when you go out to Fresno and you tell some jokes into a microphone, you fucking kill, and you don't know what's happening. Right. You're like, why did they laugh at that? That's
the funny part is I was here for I think 3 months, and I went back to Portland.
Right.
And I felt more confident myself, but it wasn't an open mic, but it was one of the things where you schedule beforehand to get on, but you don't get paid.
Right.
And so I did that while I was there. It's a really fun place, and they usually pack it in with a good little audience, but then the comedians go outside and smoke and sort of talk outside. everyone came in to watch me. Not everyone, I shouldn't say that.
Right,
but
right.
they packed it in extra hard, and they were like, "Whoa, what's he done?" You know.
Been away for 3 months in LA.
Yeah, like I.
By the way, that's a pussy move, Kyle. You visited home after 3 months.
I got homesick. Yeah.
Oh,
no, my friend said first I went back because of I don't know how to not commit fraud over the podcast, but I'm receiving money, and so I had to go back and take care of it. And
you had to go cash some checks. That's all.
So I went down there for that, and then when my friends were like, "Hey, we're driving to Portland. Do you want to ride with us?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" So we took a day trip up there, or not a day trip, excuse me.
Okay.
Took a drive up there.
Right.
I think the third day I was there, I got
drive.
rear-ended. So it's like really
Really?
bad. Oh my gosh.
Handsome guy.
Oh, bam, bam. We're on I-5, and the car ahead of us didn't stop. So.
I want to discuss with you guys a Twitter profile that just followed Stand Up Talk.
Sure, please do.
Do tell.
The profile is called The Factory Store, and it has the Laugh Factory's yellow background. It says The Factory, and then it has the store, Comedy Store's font over that.
Wow.
It's called The Factory Store, and their description is, "Yes, we are a real comedy club in Hollywood, California. No, we have not been sued yet, fingers crossed. Every Thursday at 10, no cover, and 2-for-1 drinks." So apparently there's a new room that has opened up called The Factory Store.
Why don't you Google that?
I am just so curious
Yeah,
to
Google
how
it and tell
awful
us.
their shows are, the fact that they would call themselves
It might be the most amazing new place ever.
Considering it has
I Googled
an,
it, I don't see it.
shouldn't they call it like the Comedy Laugh or something? Like it has nothing to do with the Factory Store. Doesn't mean that.
Factory Store's pretty interesting.
I can't find anything on Google.
I can't wait to do shows there and then be like, oh yeah, no, it's pretty good.
What if you called it the Laugh Store?
The Laugh Store.
I just their shows must be terrible, right? I mean,
It sounds like someone just gave a funny title to their room that they're doing a mic in.
Or maybe it's not a real place.
it sounds like they're trying to be an actual club.
No, they're just being silly. It's like Dangerfields 3 in Koreatown.
Hey, all right, do some research and Google that.
Yeah,
I did. I couldn't find anything on
Why are you derailing this podcast? I said disrailing. Why are you derailing this podcast with your weird internet bullshit? You know, you can search through the internet and find all sorts of funny pictures and memes, I think.
No.
You don't have to report them all on our podcast.
Pull up a kitten and a push door.
Well, that one's comedy related.
Type in cat plays piano and see how many.
That one's comedy related.
And then you can pause.
Yep.
I got jokes for days.
All right. So we've had fun on the podcast. Let's talk about something uplifting
Sure.
for a little bit. Ari, don't derail us again with something you found on the internet.
That was
be
a good
present
derail.
the whole time.
Next time, research it before.
So you're
There's
doing
no
shows.
more info on it.
You're back and forth between Portland and Los Angeles, Kyle. Where have you had your greatest success? Like, what one show in the 2.5 years do you think that you had just your most people, the best response? What was that?
You know, I think it might sound silly, but I had, I don't know why, but there was an open mic at Helium Comedy Club. I think it was my 1 year anniversary of doing it. And they packed up this room. And it wasn't especially, it wasn't like a special day or anything, but it was just a random Tuesday. Put my name on the list. They got me in number 11. And I just remember them making fun of every single person that went up before me. And so, I was still getting nervous at the time before I got on stage. I still get those little
Butterflies.
bubbles. I go up there, the first minute, not a laugh. And then I just remember improvising something, and the whole place erupts. And afterwards, I got off stage and went back and sat in the back of the place. And 3 or 4 people came up to me, and that's when I got invited to the Facebook group, which was, I guess, kind of elite or something.
There was an insiders club. You made it seem like they were all supportive, but you had to kill first. There was an insiders club.
There's definitely groups and stuff like that. But when I say supportive, I mean, like the first time I ever did comedy in Portland for that open mic, I did 2 minutes out of 5. I got 1 laugh and because it was the suicide joke. Well, the guy afterwards says, "Is this your first time doing comedy?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Welcome." And they all clapped again. So I mean,
wow, what a
it's a supportive
nice
group.
story.
But they are sectioned. The Facebook group is mainly for getting people the gigs and sort of getting them into the circle.
If you had started in Los Angeles, how would your life be different?
I wouldn't be doing comedy.
You wouldn't be doing comedy.
No.
It would have been too intimidating or too.
No, well, it's here. It's the thrill of doing comedy is kind of sucked from you when there's no crowd.
So the advice for people at home, if someone's living in Iowa listening to a random podcast,
you don't want to move to LA too fast before you build up your love for comedy, why you're doing it,
right.
and making sure that this is what you want to do for the rest of your life, because it may not be. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to turn into writers or producers or whatnot. But the main thing is to figure out that this is exactly what you want to do.
Danny Jacobson.
Right.
Danny Jacobson. Did I tell you this story, Ari? So I'm at a Laugh Factory open mic, right, which gets critiqued by, what's the guy's name? Jamie Masada, who is a nice enough guy. I guess I don't have anything against him. And, I did it years ago when I was new and I was terrible. And then I did it recently when I was, better. And I get up and I do my set, and afterwards we line up for our critique with Jamie Masada, and we all, march one by one. I'm probably 7th or 8th in line, and I'm listening to the people in front. Their critique is all, "Yeah, you're terrible.
Right.
You need more time on stage. Don't come back to the club for like 6 months. You need 6 more months of stage time. Be on stage all the time. Don't come back to the club." And so I'm getting ready for the same critique that he just gave everyone else, and he said, "You are the greatest writer that I have seen since Danny Jacobson." And I don't know who Danny Jacobson is. I was like, "What do you?" That means I'm good, right? That means you're passing me. That means you are the greatest writer since Danny Jacobson, and your face is like shit. Your face is like shit. And I was like, "What, shit?" And he was like, no, that's too harsh. Your face is like stone. Your face is like some kind of shitty stone.
Oh no.
You have to make the expressions, buddy. You have to make the smiles, and you have to make the expressions. And I went, "Oh, I thought it was just a 3-minute open mic. I didn't get too animated." And he was like, "No, you come back next week. You just come back, be on the mic, and make the faces."
Right.
Don't be shitty stone face. Come make the faces. And so I came back next. I was thinking, man, this is the start of Showcase. This is the start. All I have to do is make faces while I'm up there doing my Danny Jacobson inspired material.
Right.
And because he thinks I'm the greatest writer since Danny Jacobson. And I Googled Danny Jacobson, and that's from the 80s.
Sure.
So he hadn't seen a better writer in 30 years. Really? Fantastic. My material is gold. Danny Jacobson went on to create a little show called Mad About You with Paul Reiser, and that's why he's not a famous stand-up comedian, because he made millions being a writer. So I come back and I do my set with faces, but Jamie wasn't there that week. I tell the girl, I go, I'm not on the list. I was just supposed to come back. And she's like, "Oh, great, I'll come back next week too." And so I came back next week too, and I performed again, and Jamie was still not there. He was in Chicago. And so after a while, I gave up. I was like, I'm a quitter. There's no reason.
That's your problem, I think, is that you gave up.
So I
should have kept going.
Well, listen, I'm still going to be the greatest writer since Danny Jacobson the next time he sees me, and then I'll be making faces.
For those people who don't know, and I don't know if it was like this when you went, but you have to wait in line the week before on a Tuesday for 3 or 4 hours. Then the next week you go in and they give you 3 minutes. It has to be clean. Yeah. I did all that, and think Jamie, I was number 5. Jamie came in on number 7 and watched.
You want to go towards the end of the Laugh Factory open mic, just in case he's not there.
And afterwards, I introduced myself, and it just it doesn't matter.
3 minutes. Well, it does matter. It's stage time and it's an experience, but the 3 minutes of clean material for me is brutally difficult.
Yeah,
because I do dirty stuff, and I'm an angry, dirty comedian. And so to get that sort of positive feedback, I was like, "Oh, my fucking ship has come in."
Sure.
And then you're watching another podcast later, and they're talking about how he's never passed anyone from the open mic.
Right.
He's had the open mic for 20-something years. He put you in showcases. You get on like it takes years and years. No one ever goes to the open mic and becomes and there's a reason, because you're not experienced enough.
Right.
No one experienced
Just the
enough
fact
to
that you're
stand in line.
showing yourself at the open mic. I'd like to attack that place from a different angle, but that's tough.
Buddy, you're the greatest writer. You're just the best. You're the best writer since Danny Jacobson.
Your face though is done. Your face is done.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think your face is like shit. Your face is like some kind of shitty stone. It's just no good. It's no. You have to make the faces, buddy. You have to give the people the laugh. You have to make you think the faces. Okay, I'll do the faces next time.
Don't you ever tell me how to live my life.
But he's right. He's right in a way. So Ari's giving me the high sign. We've used up the time on my. No, we've used up our.
I was giving you the light.
Yeah, we have to boil it down. So Kyle,
it was a pleasure you have me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming in. You're here in Southern California. We expect to hear great things from you. Great things from the Sal's Comedy Hole podcast coming. I'm going to get more confident and comfortable in my voice.
You're doing good.
Ari, thanks for pushing the buttons today.
Thank you, sir, for letting me push buttons.
Absolutely. I'm sorry you felt the need to talk a few times during the podcast. I think that really kind of held us back.
Stress you too much.
I think I'm I had a poll on the website, and they said that I was the favorite character of all time.
You had a Polish person running your website?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for now from Sal's Comedy Hole podcast. We will see you next time. And remember to go to StandUpTalk.com and buy merchandise and have fun. Thanks, everybody.
Twitter.com/IGotKyle.
Twitter.com/IGotKyle, which means you got to change that.
No, that's simple.
Yeah, just be Henson at Twitter.com.
Good night, everybody.
Night.